Where are you, as a Spurs fan, on the Ange out-ometer after yesterday's limp display against Arsenal's strict brand of Conte ball? The vultures are starting to circle over our Aussie idealist. But where do you stand? I'll be getting into what I think in today's episode. Meanwhile, I'll also be digging deep to try and find some positives from yesterday's North London derby defeat and bringing you news from around the Premier League. So stay tuned to today's episode of Daily Premier League News with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening. Please, as ever, do press that like button. Please do subscribe if you're not already a subscriber for daily Premier League news and all stuff about my beloved Tottenham Hotspur. And of course, you can become a member. Only £1 a month. Details of how in the description box below. But, of course, I left this till Monday afternoon because yesterday's derby defeat was so disappointing. And of course, all you Spurs fans are watching now are probably a mixture of anger, lividness, I don't know, maybe some even level of apathy a little bit in terms of the rest of the season right now. I know how it can feel after such a huge defeat. And we had such great hope, of course, not only because it feels to me like, or it certainly felt to me before yesterday, like we're on the way forward, things are growing. We got rid of a lot of the players in the summer that we all thought were not right for this project and this system. And maybe it felt like yesterday, I certainly spoke in videos last week about how it felt like yesterday had the opportunity of being a real statement win for Tottenham Hotspur, particularly with Martin Ødegaard and Declan Rice out for Arsenal, who are two of their most important players. But I mentioned Conte ball in that opening because they did a number on us. And they were always going to do a number on us because they did a number on us last year as well. And Newcastle did a number on us last week. And teams know how to play against us. And the reality is, against the teams with the better players, with the better paid players, with the better experienced players, we are going to struggle to break down systems like Arsenal's yesterday. They put their bodies on the line. They played narrow. They didn't let us get between the lines. We never got in behind them, really. I can only think of one or two times we even got to the byline and got crosses back. And we just didn't really threaten. And as a result, I'm afraid the writing was on the wall. And it was always likely that they were going to find a way to score a goal. And I think what makes it even more frustrating, and the reason I want to talk about Ange, is because it's that thing that he talks about and has talked about, not really caring about, the set-piece coach. Him feeling that we don't have a particular narrative against us or shouldn't have a narrative against us in terms of set pieces. But I've said it millions of times before, not to exaggerate there, but I've said it loads of times before. You cannot come out and say, as a manager, I don't care about set pieces. It's not a problem. I don't think teams should have set piece coaches. You cannot come out and say that if you are a team then who regularly concedes from set pieces, because it makes yourself look stupid. And he shouldn't do that. But anyway, I'll get more into that. I will. But I said in the opening, where are you on the Ange out-ometer? And I want to nail my stick in the ground now, nail my flag to the mast. I think we have to be patient. We have to hold our nerve. I know it's so difficult today. I know the instinct is to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, it's not working, it's never going to work. I've looked at all the people online, on Twitter, on X, on Instagram, saying, here are the teams that Spurs have beaten since Ange has been in charge. And it's mainly only a mix, other than Liverpool and Manchester United once, it's mainly a mix of kind of lower half teams. I get that, I see it all. But we're in the middle of this rebuild. I do not see an alternative to Ange Postecoglou at the moment. And I will ask you now, get in the comments. If you're very angry about Postecoglou and you think there's no future for him, please tell me in the comments who you think the alternative is, who could do, say, a similar job to what Unai Emery has done at Aston Villa. There will have been a lot of fans of Aston Villa saying, give Steven Gerrard a chance, give him the time, give him the patience. But they took the decision and they brought in Emery, and you have to say he is the only example I can think of in the last few years where it's turned around just like that and they've suddenly become a challenging team from being a relegation team. Now, I'm not saying Spurs are a relegation team. It's nowhere near as bad as that. And what I will say about Ange Postecoglou, and the reason, or one of many reasons why I think we need to remain patient and hold our nerve, is that I genuinely think after losing Harry Kane at the beginning of last season, if we didn't have Ange Postecoglou in charge, we might have finished like 14th. We might finish 14th or 15th. We found a way. We found a way to play good football and important football. And do not forget, everybody was calling for good, attacking, progressive football. And we have that. Now, I know what you're saying. You're probably screaming at your screen now saying, we didn't play like that yesterday. We were suffocated yesterday. Arsenal just put 11 men behind the ball. And I get it. Their fans don't care. It's a North London derby win. You take it however you can get it. I didn't care when we beat them 3-0 with Conte and we suffocated them. We stifled them. I didn't care. But that is just the reality yesterday. And the way that Arteta has found to be pragmatic in those big games, because he knows that's the only way that they can win the title. And they've spent a lot of money over 5 years. They've trusted the process. They've kept with Arteta. And now he is trying to put the finishing touches to trying to wrestle the Premier League title from Manchester City, who've won it for the last 4 seasons. And he knows to do that, he has to be pragmatic in those big games. If he opens up at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and lets it become a basketball match, he knows there's every chance that Tottenham and the fans, who will get into it more if it's that kind of game, will possibly beat them, certainly get a draw against them. Whereas yesterday, he knew if he kept a clean sheet, they would win the game because either from a set piece or a mistake from us playing out of the back or a transition, they would score the goal. And unfortunately, it was a set piece. But anyway, getting back to it, who is the alternative then to Ange Postecoglou at this point? I just don't see one, and I think we have to be brave. But tell me, please do, in the comments, who would you go for next? The next thing I wanted to say, this is what I'm feeling at the moment. Don't forget, in the second season of Maurizio Pochettino, people wanted him out as well. They did. They thought he didn't have it, and it took for that... Actually, what I was going to say is, it was in the first season that they especially wanted him out, and it took that Aston Villa game where Harry Kane scored the deflected free kick. But the main bit I want to talk about, the big change from Pochettino, in that first season, was, if you remember, and please correct me if I'm wrong, he made Yunus Kabul the captain. We had Adebayor in the team and numerous other senior players in the team. And eventually, there was apparently some kind of uprising amidst the younger players, the players who'd come up through the academy: Kane, Townsend, Livermore, Ryan Mason. There was a bit of an uprising where they were saying these players are not working hard enough. And as a result, in the end, Pochettino put his faith in Kane, put his faith in Mason, and played those younger players. And as a result, we were better. Now, I wonder whether Ange Postecoglou is in a similar place to where Pochettino was there, and maybe there's going to have to start to be a little element of weaning the senior players out, because the younger players, the hungry young players with raw, brilliant talent, and I'm talking about the likes of Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall, maybe players like Rodrigo Bentancur have to start looking over their shoulders. Maybe Yves Bissouma has to start looking over his shoulder. Maybe even James Maddison, who I've seen got a lot of stick online after yesterday's performance, has to start looking over his shoulder, because, and I'm not putting this all on yesterday's game, I'm just saying that in terms of a hunger and a mentality and a belief that anything is possible, those younger players will be fearless, and we have to start blooding them. And I just wonder whether we're in a similar moment to where Pochettino was. So that was in Pochettino's first season, but let's not forget, the last time Spurs had as bad a start, first 4 games in the Premier League, as this was 15-16. And people wanted Pochettino out then. Don't forget what happened that season. We put together a title charge. Something clicked. And we went on a charge and we started making people who were doubters believe. I will also say the last few years, it certainly felt like, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but the last few years, it's always felt like we've had a good start. Certainly last year we know we did. But also... Other than maybe the season after the Champions League final, we've always been there or thereabouts, kind of really good starters. Well, this season, we've had a bad start, just like we did in 15-16. So do not think that it's over. It's not over, and it needs something to click. And let's hope it starts this Wednesday night against Coventry City, where we have to go and get a victory. And I think some of those young players will get blooded. And I just hope that Postecoglou puts together a good mix of first team players with some stability at the back, along with then those exciting younger players who can come in. We've got to get a first win then, and then take it into the Premier League and really start putting a run together as soon as possible. I wanted to talk a little bit about the atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday. Obviously, I wasn't there. I was doing the watch along on We Are Tottenham TV. But it sounded to me like it wasn't huge. Like, it started well. But what I would say is, I think the way that Arsenal play, so stifling, so narrow and so defensive, it didn't allow us to get in between the lines. It didn't really allow us to make anything exciting happen. And I think in moments like that, in games like that, when the opposition are doing everything they can to make sure you don't get in, there's no excitement in the ground, you almost have to sometimes create your own excitement. And that's where it takes, I think, maybe a 50-50 challenge. I mean, I have to say, the fact that we got booked 5 times, 5 of our players got booked in the first half, where it did not seem like a tetchy, scrappy game, that showed that the referee had kind of lost control a little bit. But I think in moments like that, somebody has to get the crowd up and find a way. And sometimes a 50-50 challenge, a reducer, can do that. And we've got to learn that. And that's another example of our mentality not quite being there. You've got to say it about Arsenal. They have learned how to be absolute shithouses on the pitch. Professional fouls, time wasting, little digs here and there. And they were brilliant at it yesterday. I'm sorry to say it, they were. And Tottenham are naive, and they're not there yet. And that is another example of it being the start of a project, rather than where Arteta is towards the top end of a project, 5 years, 6 years. And he needs to win this Premier League. Because with the money that Arsenal have spent, if they don't win the Premier League now, I genuinely believe that some of their fans will start turning because of the pragmatism, that the way they play, especially in those big games. But playing 4 centre-backs in the back line and then 2 defensive midfielders in all of their games doesn't mean that they don't score goals. Of course they do. But it's pretty dull to watch at the best of times. It's not me being, I'm not being jealous. It's not that I'm angry and I'm just saying I think if they don't win the Premier League or the Champions League, having spent the money they've spent, having given Arteta 5 or 6 years, and with him playing so pragmatically in these big games, then I think the Arsenal fans will start to turn. But who knows? Anyway, it's not for me to say. I don't really care. One thing I will say, I'm trying to be positive, but one thing I will say is that losing 3 North London derbies at home in a row is unacceptable. During the years of Pochettino, when we finally started turning it and winning North London derbies regularly, we never won games at the Emirates. It's got to be a fortress. It's got to be so difficult to be turned over there at our ground, and we've made it too easy. Yesterday was more like a 0-0 game, probably should have been a 0-0 game, and then we made a mistake from a set piece, but still, it's got to be our fortress, and that really is disappointing. I will also blame Ange for things where I think he needs to be blamed, and I have to say the substitution yesterday, bringing on Timo Werner for James Maddison, when we're playing against a deep block at 1-0 down, what does he really expect there? We haven't got in behind the back line all day. Werner's not going to get in behind the back line. I actually thought when Werner came on, he looked all right. He won a free kick, didn't he? But I think in moments like that, in games like that, you want players on the pitch who can do something out of nothing, and that is not Werner. That's why I would have kept James Maddison on, no matter how fatigued he was. Let me know what you think in the comments. There's an element of Spurs at the moment, and again, it comes down to the youthfulness of the team and the squad, I think, and a naivety and a lack of leadership, which is when we do concede against the big teams, when we do go down, we never really turn it around afterwards. It never looked like we're going to score after. It never looked like we were going to score against Newcastle after they went 2-1 up. It never looked like really we were going to score against Leicester once they got their equaliser. They were the ones who pushed on with the momentum. And we have to kind of start believing in ourselves somehow. Something has to change. And I'm not sure exactly what that is. It might just be the growth of the players, the belief in the project as they all start get bed into the team a bit more. Maybe it'll help when Solanke gets off the mark and he feels more confident. I thought he was excellent with his back to goal play yesterday. I thought he held the ball up really well, and he made a couple of chances for himself. A header from across that came across the box. But no, kind of other than that first half, actually, should say that chance where we won the ball high up the pitch, Sonny got a foot in and it came to him and he turned pretty slowly. I can see why he took another touch because he was trying to get a shot off. But what he really needed to do was lay it into Brennan Johnson. There have been so many occasions actually this season where balls should have been laid into Brennan Johnson on the right. And it's almost like the players don't fully believe in him at the moment, and that's disappointing. But we need Solanke to get off the mark soon. That's why I would start him, assuming he's fit, I'd start him at Coventry in the week and hope we can make some chances for him there. I also have to blame, I'm afraid, Vicario for the goal. I like Vicario, great shot stopper. I like his attitude. But the reality is now we can't just blame Ange and the set-piece coach. The reality is, and I've said it before, but I'll double down on it, Vicario needs to just plough through players. When the ball is coming into his 6-yard box, especially right in the middle, that has to be his. Plough through the players. If they block you, go down. You will get the free kick. No keeper in the history of time, of the Premier League anyway, has given away a penalty for coming to punch a ball out from a corner like that. The only one I can think of who's ever even had a penalty against him for coming out with a punch at all, and that was Onana, who came a long way for Man United last year. That was only after earlier in the season he had absolutely almost decapitated an attacker trying to come out and punch it and was not given a foul against him. So it's very difficult, and I'm afraid Vicario is too meek. He's too meek when it comes to those corners. He's too meek when it comes to the free kicks. He's a big guy. He's got to show his strength and just plough through them. And I don't just mean plough through the attackers, plough through the defenders as well, because yesterday it was like, actually, the Arsenal player pushed the Spurs player onto Vicario. So you're never going to get a foul for that. So he's just got to plough through everyone, push them all out the way, come and punch it, come and catch it. Would have been 0-0 had that not happened. With that in mind, Ange Postecoglou's quotes after the game are worth talking about. He says, "I know for some people think I don't care about set pieces, and it's a narrative that you can keep going on about for ages and ages. I understand that. Like I said, we work on them all the time like we do for every other game. You know that they're a threat. As I said, for the most part, we handled them, meaning Arsenal, really well today. But we switched off for one and we paid the price, and you learn from that and you move on. But it is what it is. It's my burden to carry, and I'm happy to do that. I've always said, for me, there's a bigger picture at play here that's much more important than the finer details of us getting to where we want to. For us, the way forward is to try to turn the football we're playing now into something meaningful." He's trying to switch the narrative away from set pieces there into the reality that we get into lots of good positions and don't score enough goals. That's true. But it would have been 0-0 if we just stayed switched on for the set piece. And he has got to go to Vicario and say, that box is yours. And if you concede another goal from a corner in your 6-yard box like that, I will get another goalkeeper. It's as simple as that. That's as strong as I can be about one of our players at the moment, because that is the Premier League. I'm sure it didn't happen to Vicario in Serie A, and it wouldn't, because you'll get free kick for anything from referees there. But you've got to be stronger. You've got to be more aggressive, and he's got to learn from that. But other than that, I agree with what Ange is playing. I do. What he's saying, sorry. We are getting in decent areas, but we don't have a special player at the moment. We don't have a Kane. We don't have a Bale. We don't have someone who can do something out of nothing. It has to be that structured football. And for the same way that was positive last year, and I think without it we would have come 14th or 15th, at the moment, especially against good teams like Newcastle and Arsenal, where they're putting their bodies on the line, playing 10, 11 behind the ball, and they don't switch off because they're the best players on the best wages and they're concentrated for entire games. They're international players. At the moment, we also need someone special. And therefore, I would say in games like that, find ways to get it to Porro outside the box, because we know he can hit an absolute banger. Find ways to get Maddison into space so he can have shots from outside the box. And improve our set piece, improve our attacking set pieces. We've got to be better at that, because at the moment, we're not getting any cheap goals, and we need to score more cheap goals. And as we know, we concede too many cheap set piece goals, 16 last season, and our first yesterday. Some more attempted positives. Like I said, I thought Solanke's hold-up play was good. I also thought Deki Kulusevski in the kind of 8-10 role alongside Maddison was excellent. The only player really who felt like was going into 50-50s hard, other than that yellow card for Van der Ven, of course, in the first half, which was pretty on the line, I'd say. But Kulusevski was going into those 50-50s hard, and I thought he worked really well. And I think he's a very, very important player for Spurs at the moment, and we should keep him playing in that 8-10 role. And I'd start him against Coventry as well. Let's see if he can pop up with an assist or a goal. The other thing, just before I finish talking about yesterday's game in particular anyway, or a couple of things. Brennan Johnson has had to delete his Instagram account because of the abuse he's been getting. That is unacceptable. You can be angry at players, you can be angry at managers, but do not abuse people. It's unacceptable. It makes our club look bad. So I just think, of course you have every right to be livid. You have every right to be upset about losing for the third time in a row against your biggest rivals. But to abuse, and particularly like racially abuse footballers on their social media accounts, or anyone, is just unacceptable. I'm sure you saw an interesting story that came out last night, which is that someone discussed how, Christian Romero retweeted someone's post. I think it was a journalist from South America saying that the defender played against Arsenal with a fever and was angry at the fact that he had to come home from international duty making his own plans, whereas Arsenal players apparently who came back were given a private jet to come back from South America. So I'm afraid that really plays into the those of you who are very angry about Daniel Levy and penny pinching and Enoch out, etc., etc. Let me know what you think about that in the comments section below. It's not a good look. Once again, bad optics. And frankly, if Romero played with a fever, he shouldn't have done. He shouldn't have done. He should be a big enough, strong enough man to say to Postecoglou, I'm actually not 100%, let Radu Dragusin play. And unfortunately, it makes a rod for his own back in terms of the way he turned off for that goal. His lack of concentration, let Gabriel get the wrong side of him, push him in the back a little bit, clever play. Not big enough push for the referee to spot it, but big enough to keep Romero from jumping. That's where the goal comes from. Some other Spurs news. Leeds' chairman has come out and said that before Archie Gray signed for Spurs, he was subject to interest from Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. Like I said, let's see if Archie Gray will start on Tuesday night. Did I call him Alfie Gray earlier in today's episode? If I did, I apologise for that. A little bit tired after yesterday's festivities. Some other news, some transfer possibilities here. Spurs have told AC Milan that they're willing to pay €20 million plus bonuses for Noah Okafor. Apparently, according to Milan Live, the deal has a good chance of happening in January, and negotiations between the two clubs are expected to heat up over the next few weeks. Let's see what happens there. Alistair Gold said at the weekend, Bentancur's charged from the FA for that stupid racist comment he made at the expense of East Asians and Son Heung-min. He could face a ban of potentially 6 to 12 games for that. That would not be good for his Spurs career, I think it's fair to say. Also, obviously, it came out over the weekend or back end of last week that QT Romero, is not looking to sign a new contract at the moment. And his contract runs out in 2027. So don't be surprised if there's a bidding war for him from the big clubs next summer. Yeah, talked about Romero. I was disappointed with his defending for the goal yesterday. But in terms of attacking threat, nobody has scored more Premier League goals than Christian Romero as a defender since last season. So let's try and remain positive. We've got a great player there. I'd love him to sign a new contract. I'd love him to stay at Spurs. I'm not sure if he will, but let's not get overly upset about one game. I know he's made a few mistakes this season, but I still think he is the best defender at the club. Meanwhile, the Sporting Lisbon president has talked a little bit about Victor Gyökeres, who of course has been on Spurs' list for a while. He says, to be honest, I've seen inferior players transferred for more than 100 million euros and big players who are not as good as him for below 100 million euros. Victor is happy at Sporting. During the transfer window, there was not a day without news saying that Victor was leaving, but he stayed. I don't know. Would you still want Gyökeres to come to Spurs? I don't think it's likely now that we've bought Dominic Solanke. Just a quick loan update for Spurs players who are out on loan. Dane Scarlett was an unused sub as Oxford beat Stoke 1-0. Manos Solomon played the first 78 minutes for Leeds in a 1-0 home loss to Burnley. 53 touches in the game, created 3 chances. However, his error led to the only goal in the game, apparently. Ashley Phillips was an unused sub as Stoke lost 1-0 at Oxford. Jamie Donnelly, an unused sub as Leyton Orient won 1-0 at Reading, so that's not good. Our players not getting minutes. Matthew Craig played the first hour for Barnsley as his team lost 3-0 at Stevenage. George Abbott played the full 90 minutes as Notts County beat Bromley 4-2 away. 52 touches, 1 touch in the opposition box, made 3 passes into the final third. Alejo Valise played 57 minutes for Espanyol as his team beat Alaves 3-2. 9 touches in the game, 1 in the opposition box, had 1 shot. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is now the captain of Marseille, played the full 90 minutes as they beat Nice 2-0, and Marseille about to sign Adrien Rabiot to go along with Højbjerg and Mason Greenwood. Marseille looking strong this season. There's been a U-turn from Spurs, apparently, about the report I brought you last week about David Pleat's book. He was upset because the Spurs refused to give him a kind of launch for that book at the club and wouldn't sell the book at this club shop, even though it's raising money for motor neuron charities. And apparently they hosted David Pleat at the North London derby yesterday, and they've made an about turn there. Before I bring you some other Premier League news, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please do press the like button. Please do press subscribe if you haven't already. And please do become a member. I really appreciate all of you members. Only £1 a month. All the details of how in the description box below. Start at Man United, who got a bit of a fortunate 2-0 win at Southampton. They conceded a penalty and Southampton felt the pressure and it was saved. Ten Hag has come out. He said on the following about criticism: we'll do our best to win every game. We see where we are in May. I know in the process where we are and what we have to do, where we are going. I've said before, we're still in a transition period. Well, who isn't? He also answered Cristiano Ronaldo's comments from last week about Man United. He said, Ten Hag said, he said that Man United can't win the Premier League. He said this if you read the article very well. He's far away in Saudi, far away from Manchester. Everyone can have an opinion. It's okay. Over to Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk lost a Premier League game for Liverpool for only the third time at home. He now has more defeats in his last 5 league matches at Anfield than in his first 96 home appearances. And now some mad Man City stats. Erling Haaland obviously got the Premier League Player of the Month for the 3rd time. In August, he set the competition record for the most goals ever scored in the first 3 games of a season and became just the 2nd player after Sir Harry Kane to score back-to-back hat-tricks twice. His month by numbers was 21 touches in the opposition box, 14 shots, 10 shots on target, 7 goals, 2 hat-tricks. That's in August. And of course, he scored another 2 at the weekend, didn't he? He now has won the award as many times as Gareth Bale, Ruud van Nistelrooy and Sadio Mane. The hearing into Man City's 115 charges has started today. It'll take a long time. Pep Guardiola has said the following. He said, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. We'll see. I'm not a lawyer. There are many lawyers in this country and in Spain. I'm happy it's starting on Monday. I know what people are looking forward to and what they expect. Man City, I think it's fair to say, are just going to pay for the most expensive lawyers in the world to get them out of it. Meanwhile, Ederson was crucial at both ends of the pitch for Man City in their 2-1 win against Brentford. He made 5 saves, which is the joint he's ever made in a home league game for Man City, and it became the first goalkeeper to provide an assist in the Premier League this season. I said it during the summer. If City let Ederson go to Saudi Arabia, they would regret it massively. And they didn't. And I think as a result, they will win the league this season. And they're still going for that invincible record. I've said it early this season. I think that's why Pep is still there. Brentford played so well against them. And we've got to play Brentford next week. I'm not excited about that, to be honest. Brentford were very impressive. Man City did well to beat them. Over to Chelsea. Ben Chilwell is hoping to be included in their 25-man Premier League squad now that there was no move for him to Turkey. And Maresca has opened the door to that. He said, we'll sit with him and find a solution. He's probably going to be back with us. We'll see. At the moment, he's not training with us. The reason why is because the idea was for him to leave. Meanwhile, despite Bentancur potentially facing a 6-12 game ban for his racist comment, Chelsea's Enzo Fernandez is not facing any punishment from the Football Association because the FA apparently think it's FIFA's job to charge him. It seems like a bit of a contradiction. Meanwhile, still at Chelsea, Nicholas Jackson has signed a new deal. I don't really rate him, to be honest. And over at Brighton's 31-year-old manager Fabian Herzler has won the Manager of the Month award for August. 2 wins, 1 draw. Excellent impact from him. Wouldn't surprise me at all if some Spurs fans started calling for him to be the next manager after Ange Postecoglou. But like I said at the top, and I'll stick to it, let's be patient. We have to be. There isn't an alternative for me at the moment. Things will improve. We just need it to click, and I'm hopeful it will soon. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Do press like, do subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you can enjoy the rest of your Monday. Cheers.